Welcome back. Today on History Buff, we are going to look at, we're delving into the events leading up to the American Revolution, a time where growing tension, simmering sentiment, and ultimately open rebellion against the British rule. We'll uncover the roots of the conflict and explore the key events that pushed the colonies toward independence. So this leads to our central question. What were the key events and causes that led to the American Revolution? As we explore the pre-revolutionary period, keep this question in mind. We'll investigate the political, economic, and social factors that fueled the colonists' desire for freedom. The seeds of the American Revolution were sown in part during the French and Indian War. While British emerged victorious, gaining control of Canada and lands east of the Mississippi, the war also left a bitter legacy. Britain had accumulated a massive debt and needed to find ways to pay for its expanding empire. This led to policies that angered the colonists. The war also heightened tensions on the frontier. Native Americans, like those led by the Pontiac, resisted British expansion into their territory. Pontiac's War, a bloody conflict in the Ohio Valley, exposed the challenges of maintaining peace and control over a vast and diverse territory. One of the main grievances of the colonists was the issue of taxation without representation. Britain, needing to raise revenue, imposed a series of taxes on the colonies. The Stamp Act of 1765, which taxed printed materials, sparked widespread protest and boycotts. The Townshend Act of 1767, which taxed goods like glass, lead, paint, paper, and tea, further angered the colonists. And the Tea Act of 1773, which granted the British East India Company a monopoly on the tea trade, which led to the Boston Tea Party. The colonists argued that they should not be taxed by Parliament in which they had no elected representation. Their cry of "no taxation without representation" became a rallying cry for resistance. Colonial resistance took many forms, from organized protests to acts of defiance. The Sons of Liberty, a secret organization, led boycotts and demonstrations, sometimes resorting to intimidation tactics to enforce their demands. The Daughters of Liberty supported the boycotts by producing homespun goods to replace British exports or British imports. Committees of correspondence were formed to communicate and coordinate resistance efforts between the colonies. In 1770, tensions boiled over in the Boston Massacre. British troops, harassed by a colonial mob, fired on unarmed colonists, killing 5 of them. This event further inflamed anti-British sentiment and fueled the growing movement for independence. In 1773, the colonists took a bold step with the Boston Tea Party. Protesting the Tea Act, colonists disguised as Native Americans boarded British ships in Boston Harbor and dumped 342 chests of tea into the water. This act of defiance, though costly, was a powerful symbol of colonial resistance and a turning point in the relationship between Britain and the colonies. Britain responded to the Boston Tea Party with a series of punitive measures known as Intolerable Acts. These acts were designed to punish Massachusetts and restore order. The Boston Harbor was closed, crippling the colonies' trade. Quartering Act forced colonists to house British troops in their home, and the Massachusetts Government Act reduced the power of the colonial assembly to limiting self-government. These acts, instead of quelling resistance, further angered the colonists and pushed them closer to rebellion. In 1774, colonial leaders from 12 colonies gathered in Philadelphia for the First Continental Congress. They met to discuss a unified response of Intolerable Acts. The Congress issued a Declaration of Rights and Grievances affirming colonial rights and protesting British policies. They also called for the continued boycott of British goods. This meeting marked a significant step towards a colonial unity and a collective stand against the British oppression. For you homeschoolers and teachers, so here is our project-based learning project for this chapter. Imagine you're reporting on the events leading up to the American Revolution. How would you cover the Boston Tea Party, the Intolerable Acts, or the First Continental Congress? As usual, here are the terms I felt that would be important to define in your class independently. Now, the summary. The American Revolution was not a sudden event, but rather accumulation of years of growing tension and conflict between Great Britain and American colonies. British policies aimed at controlling and taxing the colonies, coupled with colonial resistance and protests, ultimately led to the outbreak of the war. All right, see you next time.